Hello everyone, myself Sanat Kumar Swai, Assistant Professor at Vedang Institute of Technology, Bhubaneswar. Okay. Hope you're all doing well. Um, in today's class, we'll be talking about organizational change. Okay. So what exactly is change? We have been discussing in the previous past few classes about change. Okay. So in an organizational setting. Now, in this particular class, we'll be discussing about the organizational change and how we are going to implement it. See, implementation procedure is change is okay. Change is very much required, but how are we gonna implement it on a organizational setting? So we'll be going through few slides, and and we'll also see few examples and how we can correlate with the organizational setting. Okay, so let's start. Yeah. So now, first thing, just a recap. Okay, we have already discussed about it, but just a recap. So, what exactly is an organizational change? What do you mean by organizational change? See, forget about organizational change. Think about change. So, what is change? What exactly do you mean by change? See, that it is a process. Okay, change may be positive, may be negative. Okay, change may not always be a positive matter. But from the present scenario, when you the surrounding the change, I mean, um, um, the process, okay, whatever scenario is right now, if that has been changed, okay, so that can, we can say, I mean, there's another process, we can say, it's not the same process. Okay, some different happens from what it used to happen. Okay, so if you are talking about an organization, so what happened exactly? If we talk about the definition, that organizational change refers to the process through which organization adjusts its processes, its systems, its structure, or its culture to achieve its objective. So what happens is that see, the organization is working or functioning in a particular way or in a certain way. Now what happens? It undergoes certain process. What kind of process? That we will be discussing. Okay, what kind of processes? Okay, to why they want to change that process, I mean, undergo certain processes, that through that processes they're trying to adjust that, maybe certain structures has to be fixed. Okay, certain culture has to be taken into consideration, or certain objectives, okay, or certain systems. Okay, so whatever their goals and objectives are about that particular organization, they need to adjust it as per their requirement. So that is known as a organizational change in an organizational setting. Okay. Now, what is the importance? Why we need to take so much seriousness about this organizational change? Because organizational change enhances efficiency and competitiveness. Okay, we have to change some way or the other. Okay. Next, it prepares the organization for future challenges. See, if we are not changing, see, there are a lot of challenges in an organizational setting. Okay, anything can happen at a later stage. So we have to prepare ourselves for the future challenges which might occur at a later stage. Okay. Well, as said by the Heraclitus, okay, that change is the only constant in life. Definitely, you see, constant in life. What is only constant in life? Change. What we used to be a few years back, we have changed a lot, and what we are now will be changed in a couple of years later. Okay, everything changes, our mindset, our ways of behavior, okay, our social interactions, and maybe our environment also changes. Okay, everything changes. Change is a, I mean, inevitable process. Okay, so similarly, as said by Heraclitus, that change is the only constant in life. Nothing is constant, only change is constant, right? Okay. Now, types of organizational change. Now, what are the types of organizational change? Okay. So the first one is planned change. Okay. So certain change is being planned in an organization. What? That It is systemic and deliberately. You are deliberately changing it. For example, you are bringing out certain software. Everything. If you go to previous government offices or banks, you will see that everything was manual. But right now, every software has taken over. So implementing those software, it is a change. It didn't come automatically. Rather, you have deliberately made those changes. So that is known as planned change. I mean, you have planned something out. Okay, you have planned those changes, right? Next is unplanned change. Now, what is unplanned change? Unplanned change means something happens, unforeseen happens. We don't know what is going to happen, and all of a sudden, there is a sudden change. So, what happens? Those are unplanned change. So, we have to adjust to those issues, those problems, those situations. Okay. For example, responding to market disruption. Let's say the market gets disrupted. So, what you don't know, you are not aware that the market is going to disrupt. So, you are going to respond to that market disruption. Okay, so that is known as unplanned change. I mean, you have not planned anything, and there is a change, unplanned change. You have not planned, and all of a sudden you are going to change as per the situation, right? Next is structural change. Now, what do you mean by structural change? So you are going to see there is a structure, there is a skeleton. Yes or no? There is a skeleton inside our body. So that is important. That is a structure, we can say. So there is a structure of everything. For this particular building, there is a structure. Okay, so what happens is that sometimes there is a change in that structure through which the existence of that um, uh, organization stands. Okay, so in this case, what happens is that organizational hierarchy or roles. This is structure. See, there's a manager, there's a senior manager, there's a HR manager, there's a president, there's a vice president. Okay, so these are the structure of that organization. So what you are going to do, that you are going to change that hierarchy. You are going to change those roles in that particular organization. So that is known as structural change. Okay, you are going to change the structure of that particular organization. Next is cultural change. Now, what do you mean by cultural change? Cultural change means same. In every organization, there is a organizational culture. So you're going to change those culture. What is the culture of that particular organization? What is the values of those particular organization? What kind of belief patterns the organization follows? Okay. See, there are a lot of IT companies these days. Okay, a lot of IT companies. But do you think that all the IT companies are similar? No. They have their own culture. They have their own values. We cannot say that one company is very much similar. No, all have their own culture. So what you have to do is that you have to change those culture. So if you're changing those culture, then that is known as a cultural change within an organization. Okay. So if you look at an example, you see many Indian IT companies are introducing a flat hierarchy to encourage innovation and collaboration. See, flat hierarchy. What do you mean by flat hierarchy? Easily changeable. It's not the traditional hierarchy. Okay. So what happens in case of that flat hierarchy? You see that encourage innovation and collaboration. A lot of new innovation comes up, and that is good for the organization. That is good for the um, objectives of that particular organization, right? So these are the few examples of types of organizational change. Now, if we go through few theories of organizational change, okay, we are not going to get deep into those theories, but just an overlook of few theories. Okay, so theories of organizational change. The first one is Lean change management model. So what do you mean by Lean change management model? So Lean has prepared a change management model by giving three change things. Okay, what are the three things? The first one is unfreeze. Unfreeze means preparing the change. You are preparing for that change. You're getting yourself ready for that change. How you're going to get ready for that change? By certain programs, by certain workshops, by certain seminars, certain conferences, right? So you are preparing yourself for those upcoming changes. Okay. So that is known as unfreeze. Next is change. When the actual change happens, okay, how? By how you are going to implement those change. When there is a new software which has been introduced to that company, when there is a new environment, or let's say the company has been shifted to a new location, when you acquire a new office, when you acquire a new software, when you acquire a new particular project, okay, so they have to those are the new changes. Okay. Next, refreeze. Okay, so you have unfreeze, then you have change, and then you refreeze. So refreeze means you have to sustain those changes. Whatever change comes in your way, you have to sustain those changes by feedback, getting feedback, and by reinforcement from your from the market, or from the employee, or from the customers, right? So this is one of the theory. Next is Kotler's step model. So Kotler's 8-step models means, we'll go deep into in some other slide. We'll talk about Levin's change model. We'll talk about Kotler's 8 step models, ATKAR models as well. But right now in this particular slide, we'll just have an overview. Okay. Now, what do you mean by Kotler 8-step model? Kotler 8-step model, it creates urgency, forming a guiding coalition, develop a vision, etc. Right. So when there is a necessity to for a uh, for a collision, okay, so in that case, Kotler's 8-step model has been taken into consideration. Okay, why? You have to develop certain vision for that particular company. All right. Next is ATKAR model. ATKAR model means ADKAR. So what do you mean by A? A is awareness. Okay, you have to have awareness for any kind of organizational change. Next is D, desire. You need to have that desire for any kind of change which comes in your way. Okay. K is knowledge. Required knowledge is important. See, if you don't have that particular knowledge, that becomes extremely difficult for you to implement any kind of change. So you have to have that required knowledge. Okay. Next is ability. You have to have that ability to implement those changes. Okay. Next is reinforcement. R. Okay, ATKAR. So reinforcement. You have to be able to reinforce those changes at a later stage, right? So if you're talking about certain example in the Indian context, if we say that Tata Motors has adopted Kotler's model during its diversification into the EVs. EVs means electric vehicle segment. So when Tata Motors moved into the electric vehicle segment, they have adopted the Kotler's model. Okay. What is Kotler's 8-step model? We will be discussing in a few next slides. Okay. So these are the few theories of organizational change. Okay. Now, key steps in implementing organization change. What are the key steps in implementing? So the first one is that we have also discussed in the previous classes, that what is the need for change, why we are going to change that. We have to assess the need, whether that is required or not, whether that is important for that to implement those change or not. Okay, so we have to assess the need. Okay, for example, here if you see Wipro analyzing a global IT trend before restructuring. So if they are going to restructure, Wipro particularly, if they want to restructure anything, so they analyze what is the global IT trend before they are going to restructure in their own company. Okay, next, develop a clear plan. So you have to develop a clear plan. You have to have a certain objectives. You have to have timelines as well. Okay, what kind of resources are available, whether we have less resources, whether we have to acquire certain resources, whether the allocation is proper or not. Okay, so you have to have a clear mindset. You have to have a clear objective. Okay, then only you will be able to implement it in a much effective way. Okay, next, communicate the vision. Okay, so you should be able to communicate the vision to everyone. Okay, so there has to be certain transparent communication to reduce resistance. See, in most of the cases you will see when there is a implementation of change, there is a lot of resistance. Why there is a lot of resistance? Because we are not able to understand actually why that change is required, whether that is good for us or whether this is bad for us. Okay, so that becomes very much difficult and that becomes very much problematic. Okay, so we have to have a clear, transparent communication so that the resistance is less. Okay, now, for example, Infosys transparent leadership communication during digital transformation. So when Infosys moved into the digital transformation, okay, they had a very transparent leadership. Okay, so that transparent leadership um, uh, reduced the reduce the um, um, uh, conflict, I mean resistance. Okay, transparent leadership communication, when they had a, proper transparency communication, the resistance became very less. Okay, while they were undergoing a digital transformation. Next, involve employees. See, without employee, you are not going to, you cannot implement any kind of change, organizational change at least. Okay, so you have to take, because the employees are also stakeholders, so you have to take all the stakeholders into account and then you will be able to implement those change. Okay, so you have to increase their participation. A trust has to build up. Okay, next, monitor and adapt. Okay, so regular feedback and iteration. So you have to have regular feedback, you have to monitor, and then you have to adapt to those changes. Okay, so these are the few steps, okay, while you are going to implement the organization change. Now, what are the challenges in implementing change? See, when you are going to implement, there will be a lot of challenges. That is obvious. Okay, nobody wants any change. We are happy with whatever we are. Okay, so what are the challenges which normally we gonna face? Okay, the first one is resistance from employee. A lot of resistance, it comes from the employee itself. Why? Because we don't know about the future. Think, see, you think yourself to be an employee and working in a particular organization. So now, if there is a change, a new change comes into play. Okay, when there were the computers, was in, I mean, implemented in most of the organization, there were a lot of change, resistance, because they thought that that might take away their jobs, that might eat away their jobs. Okay, so we are fear of the unknown. Okay, we are fear of the unknown and job insecurity. Definitely, we have to. We being an employee, we fear the unknown and we sometimes fear for our job security. So that is why when there is a new change, there's a lot of resistance from the employees. Okay. Next is lack of resources. We may have a lot of lack of resources, like financial resources. We may have technological resources. We may not be up to date with the technological advancement. Okay, maybe a lot of human resource issues may arise. Okay, we may not have the adequate resource available for that particular for implementing for the particular change. Okay, so these are the lack of resources. So we have to have, I mean, resources, adequate resources when we are going to implement change. Okay. Next is cultural barrier. Okay. The cultural barriers, when we are going to implement certain change, that the culture can play a major role. Okay, because all the organizations, they have their own cultural values. So what happens that becomes very much difficult while implementing certain changes. Okay. Now, if you're talking about certain example, okay, if, particularly in the Indian scenario, if we see that resistance faced by LIC employees during digitalization initiatives, okay, while the LIC, Life Insurance Corporation of India, when they had certain digitalization, when they were in the process of digitalizing their entire process, so they faced a lot of resistance from the employee, from the internal employee. Okay, so what solution they took? They took training sessions, workshops, and motivational strategies. So they had a lot of training sessions, they had a lot of workshops to make their employees understand that yes, these initiatives are actually required for the company. It is actually required for yourself. You're not gonna face any kind of problem while implementing those initiatives. Okay, so these are the solutions which we need to implement while implementing the changes, right? Okay. Now, what is the role of leadership in change management? We have to see there's a very important role being played by the leadership. Okay, so you have to have visionary leadership. When there is a leadership who doesn't have a vision, that becomes very much difficult in the change management. Okay, you have to have a clear vision. Okay, that yes, this is our vision. We have to work in this particular vision, in this particular direction. So that is very much important while we are going to implement certain change, particularly in the leadership role. Okay. Next, participative leadership. You have to have that participative leadership role. Okay. Wow, you have to involve all the employees working in that in your organization while you are taking any kind of decisions. Okay, you cannot take your decision on a sole on your own basis. You have to take all your employees into account while making any kind of decision. So that has to be a informed decisions. That has to be participative decisions making. Okay. Next, transformational leadership. What do you know about transformational leadership? Transformational leadership means you have to make your employees accept those changes in a positive way. It's not in a resistive way, rather in a positive way. Okay. So you have to inspire your employees that yes, your employees are going to accept those changes in a happy way, right? So that is known as the transformational leadership. Now, if we take in some example, you will see that Ratan Tata's leadership during Tata Group's global expansion. When Tata Group was expanding globally, so they had these kinds of leadership. Ratan Tata had a visionary leadership. Ratan Tata was very participative leadership while taking any kind of decision. Ratan Tata also had a transformational leadership. Okay, so all this was being followed by the Tata Group while they were expanding globally. Okay. Now, case studies from Indian organization. If you take some case studies from the Indian organization, you'll see that Jio, when Jio came into the market, when they came into play, so a lot of domestic players, they were out of the market. Okay, so what they introduced an affordable 4G service. At that time, we only had 2G service, and introduced the 4G service, and in a very affordable way. So that was a transformation, really transformation in this industry. Okay. Next, Mahindra and Mahindra. So Mahindra and Mahindra, what they did? So when they bought the electric vehicle sector, when they moved into the electric vehicle sector, so they had a lot of restructuring and they had a lot of diversification being done in their own organization. Okay. Now, if you are going to sum up what we have to do, that's clear vision and effective implementation are very much important. You have to have a very clear vision and a clear direction, and effective implementation are important for any kind of organization success. Best practices for successful change implement. So what are the best practices? How we are going to um, understand and what we have to do and what we don't have to do. Okay. So what are the do's and don'ts? Okay. So do first one is that ensure top management support. Okay. So there, when we are going to implement certain change, we have to get that management support. The top management support has to be always there. Okay. Next, data driven decision making. So you have to have a handy, I mean, the data has to be in handy, that can be provided to the employees or that can be provided to anyone who wants to question about that change. Okay, while taking any kind of uniform decisions. Next, maintain open communication. Okay, there should not be any closed communication, rather there should be open communication in that organization. Okay, so that becomes easier, that becomes very much successful for any kind of change implementation. Now, what is don'ts? Okay, don'ts means avoid underestimating resistance. See, sometimes it does happen that there is a lot of resistance. Okay, so what it's not like we have to resist. Yes, we have to avoid. No, why that resistance is coming? That means if there is certain resistance, that means certain lack of understanding is there among the employees. So we have to clear that, rather than we have to underestimate those resistance and we have to avoid them. No, we should not avoid that. Okay, so we have to, that's a don't. Okay, next, don't neglect employee training. So we should not neglect employee training. Training is very much important. While there is a while we are in the process of implementing any kind of change, we have to we cannot neglect employee training whatsoever. Okay, so these are the few best practices for the successful change. Now we have come to the end of the slide. Okay, so conclusion. Okay, the conclusion is a path to transformation. So the path to transformation is known as change, right? So if you want to transform yourself, then you have to change. You cannot stay in a single place and you cannot say that I want to transform. If you want to change, if you want to transform the organization, then there has to be certain change. Okay, so summarizing it, number one, organizational change is vital for growth and sustainability. Definitely, if you want certain growth, if you want sustainability in the future, then you have to change. That is very much important. That is very much crucial, right? Next, successful implementation require clear vision, strong leadership. Yes, definitely. And also employees leadership. So definitely, when we are implementing, if there is a successful implementation, if we want successful implementation, then we have to have certain clear vision, certain clear direction, a very much strong leadership. See, sometimes it does happen that the change process may be very much painstaking. So you have to have certain strong leadership while implementing those change, and also the employees' involvement. The employee has to involve. They need to get involved. They need to be a part of this change process. Okay. Okay. So there is a quote by Charles Darwin. So what it says that it is not the strongest or the most intelligent who will survive, but those who can make can best manage the change. So it's not like we say the survival of the fittest. Okay, no, it's not only the strongest person or the strongest species who are going to survive, or the most intelligent species who are going to survive, but how you're going to manage your change. See, change is going to, that's an inevitable process. So change will definitely come. So how you're going to manage those change, those people are going to survive. Okay, they are going to survive. Okay. Yeah. So with this is the end of the slide. I believe we have covered all the sections, particularly implementing the organizational change. However, if there is any doubt, please feel free to contact. Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much.